Okay, we are live here on Rumble and Twitter. And if you are a follower of the Occult Rejects, you'll find it also playing on their platforms. I'm here today with Myke Hideous from the Empire Hideous, from, what do you call it? What was the other one?
Spy
Spy Society
Society,
99. And
right?
then also
The
the
Misfits,
Misfits. Exactly.
and Bronx Casket Company.
I was gonna say, don't forget the Bronx. I was in New York. I remember you.
That's the one I didn't know about. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we have Mike's website pulled up here. We also have his Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous, which I think is still active, right? You're still...
It's kind of a hard thing to explain, but we're kind of in the middle of working out some problems. But
Okay.
technically, it's still going. But right now, we've been on a hiatus.
Gotcha. I love the Evil Dead 2 poster in the background, too. I'm big fan. Love
Original. That's an original poster.
That's great.
That's funny. I just told somebody about that today myself. They had never seen the movie. They left. I think I had posted a Necronomicon. Something. It was like a joke. You ever see that Leonardo DiCaprio look where he's always got that funny look going? And it was like something like that, like him having the Necronomicon in his hand. And it's like me making it look like I care about. He was like putting it in like a free book box.
I have.
I told
are
somebody
you talking
about
about? Are you talking about the Simon Necronomicon?
It looked like the one from the Evil Dead. I mean,
you're talking about that one. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they're actually the same.
I actually have the Simon, the hardcover limited edition Necronomicon that was released in 1970.
Was that printed by Wasserman?
Oh, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but Simon was the author. And a lot of controversy about that book, but it's a limited edition,
one of the two
hardcover book that I own. I'm very proud of it.
Cool. Awesome. Sorry.
All right. So where I first met or was introduced to by digital, not by face to face, but when I first learned of Myke Hideous, it was from the Michael Deacon program. So I have to give a shout out to Mike. Very funny, very entertaining, very almost, and it's funny to say this because it's very, sometimes raunchy, but wholesome in a way, because Mike is just such a freaking nice guy.
Thank you.
Myke Hideous is such a nice guy. And that's what struck me to want to look deeper into what he was all about, because, sometimes I take away something and I'm just, once I have that bead of, laser sight focus, I want to start looking at everything. And that was what it was for him. It was this kindness that came from everything. It's my dog. My daughter's going back and forth because she's home from school now.
So good.
But I mean, that's one of the things that struck me. And I think my question too is, when it comes to what Michael Deacon was saying about, you claim, or you are, or Satanist, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what he was saying is, you're just too nice of a guy to be one. And so I think we need to clarify what that means to different people, because I think that there's a big misconception as to what that actually is, what it entails. I think a lot of that, the hype of movies and music and stuff like that. I mean, there's an expression, there's the way to just, put yourself first. And then there's also this idea that it takes in all this Talmudic and Kabbalistic child sacrifice stuff, which I think was a cover for more, I guess you could call, Hebrew-oriented things that were happening in the 80s, where they had the Satanic Panic. They just labeled everything under one box, called it Satanic Panic, and tried to discredit it. But I think there was actually real stuff going on. Definitely there was a lot of cult activity going on.
There's always stuff going on, though. That's the issue. And you just mentioned the 80s Satanic Panic. The thing is that when that happened, let's back it up even further.
Yeah, please.
Religion, all mainstream religions are always going to use the negative side to bring you into the positive side. So people are brought up on the idea that, Satanism is a bad thing. It's a negative thing. And that's mainly because that's how religion presents it. And let's put it this way. If it wasn't for Satan, the church would be out of business. So,
right.
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, let's face it, because if we didn't have religion to tell us what to do, then you know,
It's like a business merger.
exactly. but what I'm trying to say is that it all comes down to religion, and the majority of is Nick okay over there? He's okay. Yeah, there you go. But you know,
Can't take him
religion
anywhere.
religion teaches people one dogma view, and that's it. And I'm not knocking it. I mean, I was a Roman Catholic for years.
Most Satanists are. I'm just fucking with you.
Anyway,
that was a little bit of a slap at the Jesuits. That's all.
All I'm saying is that that's how we're brought up to see Satanism. There is no man in the clouds looking down upon us. There is no demonic figure with horns, red skin, and a pointy tail below us. There is no heaven. There is no hell. That's how I see it. Because you could say I'm an atheist. Fine, whatever. But when I read the Satanic Bible, it was the best self-help book I ever read.
Is that Anton Zender LaVey's Satanic Bible? Okay.
Yeah. There's also Michael Aquino's revised version.
Right.
Which
he had a little bit of a hissy fit with him. He had a little tiff with LaVey.
Yeah. Well, that went way back to probably the late 60s, early 70s when they broke up. Yeah.
I thought it was later on. Okay.
No, because what happened was LaVey started taking money, taking money from people to make them high priests, and that's not what Michael Aquino wanted. And he had a point there. Nevertheless, look, I'm not going to say that there weren't things that LaVey did that might have been unorthodox for the Satanic religion, but nevertheless, Michael Aquino, he had his vision, and his vision, it made sense, which is you don't just let people pay you. That's bribery. Maybe not bribery. Getting paid off.
Well, you know what? You know what sucks about that too. It's just my opinion. I really don't know. I don't know much about Satanic, the Temple of Set, or any of this stuff. But in my opinion, going from my experience in like the OTO, or just even when it comes to occultism, you know, if you have money, it doesn't matter then like what your understanding of occultism and magic is. And then you're going to move up. People are going to look at you because you're higher up. And then when you say ignorant shit, they're going to take it as gold.
Right.
And now, and now people that are there searching for something are getting fed bullshit and they believe it. That's where I would actually have all those problems with.
I mean,
I just tend to see Satanism, modern Satanism, as a way of bettering yourself, succeeding, and that's why they call it the selfish religion.
Self-reflection, yeah, of course. So you have
but
to
you know, I don't drink blood. I don't sacrifice babies or kittens. I mean, in fact, one of the first things in the Satanic Bible is you never harm animals or children or anybody else unless they harm you. It's not it's an eye for an eye. It's not, you know, you slap me and I turn the cheek. That's not how it is. That's why I said it's called the selfish religion.
So what do you think this other element comes from, and why do you think they blur the line and, you know, impose this? And let me ask you what you think about the West Memphis 3. I mean, because I'm certain that they did what they did. I think that they used the Satanic Panic excuse to try to say that was, you know, it was just that they were just being you know, what's the word I'm trying to say? Pigeonholed into it because of their being wearing in black, and also it was all bullshit. There was plenty of evidence. There was a long history for Eccles having mental issues and all this other stuff, and what he was into and what these other kids were involved in, and their multiple confessions that occurred afterward. But the spin and trying to get them all out and try to save them throughout I think I see that was another part of a ritual. 18 years later, they have all this support, getting people, you know, and then it's all musicians and freaking Peter Jackson, fronting the money for their defense.
Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
So
Lord of the Rings guy.
What was your question?
So why is it that they mix these and confuse the issue where, like you say, in Satanism, they're not about harming, not about the blood drinking and all that stuff in that respect. So how does it get mixed into like the Talmudic and like this ancient Babylonian magic stuff that is usually interchangeable and very, as far as what people perceive it as.
First and foremost, a lot of younger people who get into Satanism get into it because it's cool, you know, and then you have the music industry, which almost really, like, especially heavy metal, which profits off of that, you know, that look, that
Edge.
mindset. I'm sorry?
Like an edge. It provides an edge.
Yeah, I mean, you know, look at Ozzy. Ozzy was, they called Ozzy the Prince of Darkness. Bands like Dio, Iron Maiden, Slayer, King Diamond, all these heavy metal bands that were, you know, were very satanic oriented.
You know, I see Sabbath as being kind of like roped into it because that's what everybody perceived them as, like kind of incorrectly at first. So they just finally ran with it as a theme.
Yeah. Again, it's how we are brought up to understand what Satanism is. And
if you were like listen to old Black Sabbath and look at the lyrics, it'd be like, it doesn't sound any different than a conspiracy theorist from 2024.
However, if you look at the first Black Sabbath album, you know, the first album, Black Sabbath,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that in itself is a satanic album. I mean, that scared the living shit out of me when I was about 6.
I always thought the album cover was just really creepy. I don't know.
Oh
if it was
my God,
look or
creepy.
something, but it was just, yeah, it was just.
Oh my God, it gave me nightmares. I was so scared of that album, but now I love it. Anyway, like I said, it's because of the way we're brought up to understand what Satanism is. And don't get me wrong, people do take it and use it for the wrong thing. If you're going to hurt an animal, a child, or anybody else for that matter, you better stay away from me because I will hurt you bad.
And that's not Satanism, from your perspective. That's
logic. That's logic.
So what is that element then? What would you label the element that does the sacrifice? What would you say that is? Is that more Talmudic? Is that more Babylonian?
Dummies. Anybody, look, the Islamic religion, they kill everything for like sacrifice and ritual. And they open a fucking airport and they slice a lamb's throat or a goat's throat. Why? What's the purpose? The same with the Jewish religion. They have this thing where they call, you know what the scapegoat is? The scapegoat was when they take a fucking goat and they drop it out of a 4-story building.
Jesus.
Or and
no pun intended.
I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. I'll do anything for an animal. I really will. That's how much I love animals. But in fact, I just adopted a kitten on Monday. The point of the matter is, you don't do that to anything. No living creature deserves to be sacrificed or beaten or hurt in any way. And that goes for people too. So I you know, and again, it says it right in the Satanic Bible. You don't do that. You don't harm individuals unless they harm you first.
All right. So, I mean, I would say, like, I read Michael Ford's Babylonian magic book called Mass Game Whole. And to me, that, like, what they depict there and what I learned about Sabbatean Frankism, to me, that's more of what they kind of push into calling it Satanism than anything else. It's more of the Babylonian stuff and it's the Frankist stuff that they...
Isn't Michael Ford a Luciferian?
Yeah, he was. And I think he was also allegedly in the global death cult there that what's his name talks about, William Ramsey.
Order of Nine Angles.
The Order of Nine Angles. There you go.
Yeah, I have that book too. Very complicated read. Yeah, and I also have one of Michael's books as well. I know he's done a couple of them, quite a few actually, but I only have one.
Yeah, so is that it? What would you say the difference between Luciferianism? Now, these are the general questions that people want to know, and the confusion is that everything's all lumped into one category,
right?
And then it's not discernible, and you know what I mean. Then there's prejudice, and that's what they want. They want that confusion. So, what would you say a Luciferian is in relation to a Satanist? And is it different?
I don't know. I got to be honest. I'm not that educated on what the Luciferian religion or ideology conducts or what they want from their followers or what they believe in. I really don't know. And I got to be perfectly honest with you. I read Michael Ford's book back in 2000. I think it was 2008, 9, maybe 10. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly what the ideology of Luciferian is. I got to be honest. I don't remember.
We'll move on from this topic again, I said, but one more question I have. So, do you practice like any type of conjuring, any type of spells? Is there any like circle that you stand in or stand outside of? Is like what is it that you would say is it in your mind incorporated into the idea of what Satanism is?
I can neither confirm nor deny my activity in rituals.
Okay,
I'm kidding with you. When I began to study the occult and witchcraft and Satanism back from about 2000, I think it was 2006 up until about, how long was it? Geez. Almost until about 2012 or 13. All that time I was studying it, I found that for me, I'm kind of getting off subject here.
So as far as the,
I think what I'm trying to say is that when I got into it, of course, like any curious person, you want to experiment with what you're reading about. And I was no different. I wanted to understand what it was I was messing with, because the first thing, you get these books, sometimes you open up that we have no responsibility for whatever may take place in your life after you read this book, and or if you practice these rituals and or curses. So the first thing I started doing was rituals and curses. I wanted to understand what I was messing with, and I'm not really afraid of the other side, so to speak, for lack of a better term.
Do things follow you after a while, though? Do you have a dark passenger looking over your shoulder, or what?
If I do, I don't recognize it. But I will say this: the first couple of rituals and curses that I did worked. And that's all I can really tell you. How it happened, I don't know.
Well, that's enough to incentivize you to get really deep into it, right?
Right, which is why I kept going. But, I got to admit, it's been since I moved to Pennsylvania, originally I'm from Jersey. Since I moved to Pennsylvania, I haven't really done followed a lot with it. I've got to be honest, I've been really preoccupied with other things in my life, and I just haven't been able to find the time to focus on that. So, but I still buy books. I still read about it. I still find it absolutely fascinating. And yeah, I guess anybody would want to dabble in it if they're curious about it. I think you have to have the mindset to be open-minded and say, okay, all right, I'm gonna try this and see what happens. But I've never conjured. I've never conjured demons for certain purposes, but I have conducted rituals and curses. You could take that any way you want it, really.
All right. Do you guys have any questions? I was going to move on to the topic, but if you guys have anything else you want to ask in this regard.
Well, I was going to comment maybe, I guess, like a little bit on what he just said, like from my own experience. I know you told him prior that I was in the OTO. I was in that for a little bit, and then eventually I just left. But, even for me, like, I guess like in the beginning, same thing. I was all big and huge about like learning the Lesser Banishing Ritual, the pentagram, and then I got to do the hexagram and then Star Ruby and all this other stuff. You get into all that. You start playing around with like invoking certain spirits from the Kabbalah and all, from the Kabbalistic tree or gods or all those associations. And then like at some point for me, like I believed that I had magical experiences and realized that I didn't need to do the rituals and I could just do it in meditation. You know what I'm saying? So like, even for me, I mean, I don't push myself that far anymore. I might put myself pretty deep, but in my opinion, I try not to really go that far.
By the way, you have amazing eyes.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. It's the
You
tan,
really do.
it's not the blue. Thank you. But like for me, like
and also I mean that in the most manly way.
no, you're all right. I kind of didn't think you were really going there, to be totally honest with you. I really didn't. It was a big.
Anyway, no, you were saying.
Yeah, so like even kind of like my experience, I was like really big into that, and I guess maybe again, this is just for me, my experiences of magic. I just really felt that like I didn't need to do all that stuff, and like in some ways, I thought, me asking like Tahuti or something for something, I was still being a slave.
Well, you know what LaVey said about what you just said. All of that is psychodrama. The candles, the banners, the altar, it's all psychodrama. Once you learn it here, you don't need any of that.
And I was like, I can just go into a meditation and get the same effects. So I find that interesting. It's
all about the mind.
That was like kind of your experience, because the way you were saying it, I was like, that kind of sounds like me a little bit. I was at the beginning, and then after that, I just realized that I didn't need it anymore.
No. LaVey specifically talks about it in the Satanic Bible and mentions how it's what's called psychodrama, and it's everything that you use to the incense, the candles, everything. It's all to get your mind and your spirit and your body focused on what it is you are trying to accomplish. Ultimately, we are talking about an ancient practice that I believe predates Satanism and is just witchcraft in a sense, dark witchcraft. Then again, witchcraft is black and white. And so you are basically, you're training your mind to try to alter or bend reality or the present and or future. So when I did what I had to do for my rituals and curses, I did them in a way where, after having read everything I needed to read, I was training my mind to hopefully alter the future and basically in some, without, I don't know, without making it sound like, like I'm a magician, it actually worked. Whether you call it chance or you call it luck, I don't know, but it happened, and I was positively blown away.
Yeah, I find it interesting that they have now. You can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but when I was reading Masking Whole, they have different color strings that they would tie to the figure for whatever type of like curse that they're trying to put on it. I find it interesting that if you wanted to make somebody ill, it would be a blue string, and the medical establishment is everything's blue, right? And I find that a little bit more of the cultic like throwback to what they're actually doing to you. It's like a eugenics program, not really there for your health. And there's a little bit of ritual involved in there too, and the symbols of the caduceus or whatever else you want to call that.
That was even something else I was thinking of when you were saying a lot of it is like setting your mind up. I know this is going to be kind of an outlandish claim, but like even my experiences with like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and maybe even the hexagram, like I have even wondered, is that even just me like kind of representing the change that's going on inside my eyeball when I'm having a magical experience? Am I opening and closing my pupil depending if I'm banishing or invoking?
Who knows?
It seems, I was just like, this is, I just started thinking, I was like, I don't think any of this is needed. Once you realize what's there on paper, you're going to understand like, okay, I am right when I thought this was what's going on.
Yeah, if I may, not for nothing, but I wanted to mention this. After I had studied the occult and witchcraft and Satanism for about 6 or 7 years, I was so intrigued by all of it, I decided to write my own personal grimoire. And I did it all by hand in a nice book. In fact, the book was bought in Turkey. It's handmade. It's got a leather cover, and it was given to me by a friend. Now, I do artwork, so he originally got it for me to do artwork in. but it had the kind of paper that doesn't really, it's not good with a pencil. It's good to write on with a pen. So I took what I felt was the best that I could find from all the books I had read for all those years, and I incorporated them into one book, as well as putting my own versions of spells and rituals in that book. 410 pages, all written by hand, drawings by yours truly, both original and copies from some of the grimoires that I had already read. The reason I did it is because when I read the original grimoires from 1,000 years ago, the majority of them all include two things. They're all about God, number one. And number two, every time they were trying to invoke a demon for nefarious purposes, they always bound that demon. Therefore, even if you whether you believe in demons or not, therefore, when you get this demon to do your deeds, it's not going to like you.
Right.
Which is why when Anton LaVey took over the whole satanic thing and made, the new version of modern Satanism, the first thing he said was, you don't want to get these things pissed off at you because they're working for you. Why would you want to bind them and anger them? So that's why once I read all the old grimoires, I'm like, this isn't right. This can't be right. So that's when I began to read more about Satanism and Anton LaVey, and I began to truly understand what modern Satanism is. And like I said, I wrote the book. I'm very, very proud of it. It's one of my greatest achievements. It took me 1 year. Every single day I wrote in that book. Whether it was 1 page or 20 pages, I wrote in that book every day for a full year. And I created one of the greatest books, in my personal opinion, that I had. Let me rephrase that. One of the greatest creations of art that I had ever created, because it took me so long to make, and it's so detailed. I'm extremely proud of it. Some people might not get it or understand, but I think it's pretty cool.
And we should also mention, while we have the opportunity here, kind of like the segue for this, is that you also have a book that's available to all of us called King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit.
That's right.
And that's in its 3rd edition now, I believe.
Yes.
And that website, let me just pull it up real quick so people can see it. So I'm just going to share this real quick. So you can see there's all the tabs here for all the different types of things. There's Misfits Myke right there. But the book tab, you'll see right here. And this is Myke's memoirs. I'm sure they're very interesting. And I would love to hear some interesting stories if you have the time. But somebody did ask. Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I had a quick question.
Yeah,
Just in studying with Nick some of the grimoires and some of the occultists of past, it seems to me, and being from an academic scientific training, is that majority of this stuff kind of draws upon quantum mechanics, a lot of this type of science that's fringe, you could say. Would you say that Satanism plays upon or potentially is of that sort, more so than I guess what people would give it credit to be?
I'm sorry, it plays on what?
Plays on like quantum mechanics, or like with the rituals, with the invoking and stuff like that, harnessing the mental power of it all.
It could be. I don't have a definitive answer for that. I think it really depends on what an individual believes. I am a skeptic. I'm a skeptic on everything. I need proof for everything, which is weird, how I could be into the occult and Satanism and rituals and all that, because I believe in science, which, if you read the Bible,
is the devil.
Science, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Science was brought to us by the fallen angels, and they taught mankind. And obviously that's a myth in the story, but it's a great story. As well as they taught, the angels taught us how to use weapons and how to I don't know, do a bunch of different stuff. But I think it all depends on the people who are reading about it and what they choose to, to believe. So it's really in the eyes of the believer or the reader. I hope that answered your question.
That does. It does. It does. Thank you.
All right. So we have a question here that I thought was pretty interesting, and it'll kind of get us into the other aspect. We can always jump right back into this topic, though. But Eric Alexander, who it looks like is an admin on one of your things, says, curious if Myke has any fun stories from alchemy back in the day for those of us who were too young and stuck in the Midwest. I first heard of him because of the Misfits and later a Voltaire song.
Yeah, Voltaire wrote a song where he mentions me. Alchemy, if I'm correct here, what this person, Eric is referring to is a nightclub that was in New York City that I used to go to and hang out at. It was at a club. What the hell was it called? Damn, I don't remember. But when they moved it to CBGB's Gallery is when they changed it to Alchemy. And it was one of the longest running Gothic nightclubs in New York City. And I used to, I played there a couple times. I used to go there and hang out with my friends. I could always catch Voltaire there, and myself and my friend Mark, my friend Mark Steiner. A lot of different people would hang out there, and it was just a hangout, really. I think that's about all I really can say about it. I mean, I did gigs there, but that's pretty much it. I hope that answers your question, Eric.
So my question for everybody when it comes to music is, how did you punch a hole into getting into like onto stage? Like, was it a group of friends that just happened to be musically inclined, and you guys got together, magnetized together, and started doing something? Or how does that even take off the ground to where other people are like, yeah, that guy, we want him for this band?
I'm going to be really obnoxious, and I'm going to say I wrote a book about it.
Right.
I actually wrote a book about how I got into music from the very beginning when I first started out until in the last chapter that I added to the third edition, which brings me up to date into 2000. I think it was 2014 is where I ended it. But basically, in a nutshell, and I hope you guys will buy the book, whoever's listening to this. But basically, I'm a cancer survivor. I've had cancer like 8 times in my life. Wow. And the second time I had it, I became very determined because I was an artist. I've been an artist since I was 13. And as I progressed, I wanted a new outlet. So after my second bout with cancer, I wrote a few songs. I bought a Casio keyboard, like $120, and I began writing music. Then I began writing lyrics. Now, I knew nothing about making music. I have 2 older brothers. My brother Steve is a piano player as well as a music conductor. He went to school for that. And I also have an older brother, Frank, who was into rock and roll. And, Frank, my oldest brother, Frank, he was, the guitar player and the drummer. And he was into bands like Zeppelin and a lot of bands I really wasn't into. But, Zeppelin, Sabbath, The Who, classic rock, So I got that from him. And then from my brother Steve, I got the classical music, which is pretty much all I really got from him on that. But I didn't learn. I never knew how to play an instrument. I never knew how to sing. I never knew how to write a song. But I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I went. I got a keyboard. I just began to write. I had a friend of mine who played guitar. Kid was 16 when I asked him to play with me. Let me say that again. When I asked him to play in my band, and basically he helped me convert the notes that I was playing on the keyboard into chords on the guitar. And then from there, we began to write, or I should say, we began to structure the songs that I had written. Eventually, we found a bass player, a guitar player, and a drummer. We asked them to join us. We began, rehearsing these songs, because ultimately all I wanted to do was write these songs and record them from my own personal nostalgic memories. That's it. I had no intention on playing out or anything, but that all changed when people started asking, are you going to play out? Are you going to do something? I had no intention. But then one day I just said, all right, well, book a gig. Played my first gig at a club in Newark, New Jersey called The Pipeline, which many big bands played, as they were coming through touring. And I was fortunate enough to have gotten that opportunity. And from that point on, right before the release of my first 12-inch EP, the band I had quit on me. So I had to move to other musicians. And it, unfortunately for me, the rest of my career revolved around constantly finding new musicians to play in my band. So
yeah,
I think in a nutshell, I think I've answered your question. That's how I got into music.
Absolutely.
I had no background in it or anything like that. I just decided I was going to do it.
So right off the bat, was it the Empire Hideous, or did it go through some name changes?
Yeah. I actually did. I was in a band. Did you ever hear of the band MOD? Okay. Yeah. Method of Destruction.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, SOD was, that's what I got stuck in my head.
All right. Yeah. So MOD had a Billy Milano in it, and he was in SOD. So Billy Milano was the singer, and this guy Kenny Balone played guitar, who has tragically died in I think it was the last 2 or 3 years.
Another COVID victim.
What's that?
Another COVID victim?
No. He had some kind of a cancer or something. I'm not exactly 100% sure. Anyway, my point is this: Kenny and I were in band together for my first band ever. I was 17 years old, and it was called Angry Corpses. And it was a hardcore punk rock band. And as I said, it was my first project, but we never really played out or did anything like that. But that was my first project. By the time I did the next thing with all the other guys, that was the Empire Hideous. That's when I started Empire Hideous. So that was 1988.
Okay. And then, so were these other bands in tandem, like with the Spy Society? Or is that something that just came after the other thing kind of fizzled out, or in between hiatus band? Because a lot of people have a lot of projects, and it's really amazing how they juggle them all, especially when you're always trying to find people to stick with your band and not go do something else.
Well, what happened was when I was touring with the Misfits, we were literally on a plane ride back from Europe, and the bass player Jerry had said to me, "Listen," he said, "start writing lyrics, because when we get back, we're gonna get ready to write a new album." So I began to write lyrics for songs, and it just so happened that after we got back from the South American tour, shortly after, I was out. So what I did is I created a new band called Spy Society 99, or SS99 for short. And I took the lyrics that I had written for the Misfits songs and just basically turned them into Spy Society songs. And that's how that emerged. In fact, one of my favorite bands was Spy Society. It was such a great, I hate to boast, but it was such a great idea. It had such market potential. And unfortunately, it never really got off the ground further than it did. I did put a CD out of it. It took 14 years, but I finally released a CD in 2014, and I should have never stopped that band. It was a great band.
Awesome. I'm going to have to look at that even closer. So with the Misfits, I want to hear some, your positives of it, but it almost sounds like when I was listening to like a couple minutes of another interview that you had, and it sounds like the same thing that Glenn had a problem with the rest of the guys. You kind of ended up having the same fucking problem with them. And it was just like, they're not, the direction is off. They just want to do a certain way. And to me, it almost seems like the whole LeVay thing. Like, let's just see how much we can milk this thing and fuck the principles, right?
I'll put it to you this way. All right, so here's the positive things that I had from the band. I had known Jerry and Doyle, who were brothers. I had known them for 11 years before I got into the band and became the singer. And basically, I don't want to give it all away. I would really hope that everybody will buy the book to get the whole stories. But I knew them prior to getting in the band. And getting in there was a huge thing for me, because when I was a kid, these guys were like, wow, like they lived a couple towns over from where I lived. I was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey. So knowing that this very cool looking punk rock band came out of Lodi, and I bought all I had every one of their records. I spent a fortune getting them back then. Now they're worth even more. But I had every record.
With a cool horror theme too. You gotta love that in the band, right?
What's that?
With a cool horror theme too. Like that was a big deal.
That was all Glenn's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So years later, when I finally meet them, that was a big deal for me too. And then, because I met them in 87, I believe it was, in the summer of 87. And then, years go by, 11 years goes by, and they asked me to join the band. And I mean, that was something like, you can't imagine. That's like, your favorite band coming up to you and say, hey, we need a, new singer or guitar player. And you're it. So it was a big, big deal. So there was that aspect. Then it kind of catapulted my own career as Myke Hideous with Empire Hideous. And I started, all my CDs started selling and everything like that. So that was a good thing. When I first got in the band, it was amazing. Jerry treated me like his little brother.
That's cool.
And that felt good. That felt really good. But then Doyle and Chud, they didn't want me in the band. They wanted the other singer back, Michael Graves.
Graves, yeah.
So I was very confused, and a lot of
Nobody
things.
has anything good to say about Graves as far as the fans, though. So what the hell's like? I don't get that. Why is the band so got a boner over the guy, and nobody who fucking listens to music wants to hear him?
I can't tell you how they feel about it, but I can honestly tell you, I tried to audition for them as their singer in '95. And it just didn't happen. But they took Michael Graves because he was a young kid. He was 18, impressionable, and they were able to mold him.
Yes, I knew you were
what they wanted.
I knew you were going to say that.
Here, then I come into the band. How old was I? I think I was 32 at the time, maybe 30. I don't remember. But here's this guy comes into the band. I've got my own identity. I've already got a background as Myke Hideous worldwide, really, and people knew who I was.
You got your act down. You're not trying to figure it out yet,
right? And I come in. Jerry literally wanted to dress me up in the same outfit that Graves wore on stage and not tell anybody who I was. I'm like, no fucking way. No.
Oh man!
I said, I'm not going to do that. Secondly, I was promised a contract. I never got the contract. They told me that if you cut your hair, now mind you, my hair was all the ways down past my ass. That's how long my hair was. And the reason it was that long is because when I had cancer 8 years prior to that, I had no hair. So growing that hair was a trophy for me.
For sure, man. For sure.
So now, do you know who Peter Steele is from Typo Negative?
Yeah,
absolutely. Him and I were friends.
Oh shit! I was going to ask you if you ever met him. That is wild. That's
cool.
Him
and I were friends. In fact, I was the one who did his last interview before he died.
Holy shit!
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, please.
So I cut my hair, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. But after everything fell apart, I was talking to Peter on the phone, and I told him what happened. He's like, because I was, like I said, I was told if you cut your hair, it'll be a good incentive, and it'll make them realize that you really want to be part of this gig. I'm like, all
Sounds
right.
like an initiation ritual to me.
I cut my hair off. 30 inches of my hair gone. All right, yeah, it's hair. And they didn't understand this is a trophy for me that I had. And I cut it off.
You could have made with that?
I cut it off for them. Not only did I do that, I quit my job.
Oh, man.
I had to train a guy to take over. I used to work for a mag. Where are you guys from? Where are you? Are you
originally upstate New York, but I'm in
so you're
Arizona
East Coast
now. Yeah, I was. Yeah.
So
From Texas.
Texas. All right.
You got New York.
New York.
All right. So if you guys are from the East Coast, you may remember a tabloid newspaper called the East Coast Rocker or the Aquarian Weekly. Anyway, I used to work for that newspaper.
Oh, cool.
And by working for that newspaper, it got me access to meeting all these other types of bands. I'm kind of getting a little off cue here, but anyway,
right. We're just talking here anyway, man.
So, when I told Peter about how they told me I should cut my hair, he flipped. He was like, "You got to be kidding me!" He's like, "You should sue them." He's like, "You altered your appearance so that you could be in this band, and they kicked you out anyway." I'm kind of jumping ahead of the whole story, but that was one of the things Peter said. As I said, I moved out of my house. I put all my belongings in storage, quit my job. I had to drive to Connecticut to get a passport in one day, because in 2 weeks, all this happened in 2 weeks. I had all the stuff I just said. I had to get ready to go to Europe and be on tour for 40 some days. And in the meantime, going up to Vernon, New Jersey to rehearse, learning 35 new songs. I mean, I knew the old Misfits songs, but I never sang them before. So I had to learn that, pack all my belongings, prepare to quit my job. Like everything I did in 2 weeks, they never took into consideration.
No compensation, right?
I mean, they didn't realize what I changed my whole life for them.
It was a once in a lifetime opportunity for sure. And I understand why you did it, but it sucks that they didn't respect that.
No.
And how punk rock is that, right? Like, yeah, cut your hair. The first thing they fucking say in punk rock, put on this uniform and then cut your hair. Like, oh yeah, you're super punk rock.
And
in fact, be somebody else.
Not wanting Metallica.
Not wanting to tell the audience that it's not Michael Graves. It's somebody else looking like Michael. What is it? This is not Kiss.
We don't even want you to have an identity. We don't want people to know who the fuck you are, but just quit everything and come with us.
See, one of the reasons, all right, so let me back up again to the 80s. Between
Eric
80s.
Got your book.
Nice. Between 87 and 88 is when I stopped really hanging out with the Misfits. Jerry in particular. And I'll tell you why. Jerry had a lawsuit that he was preparing against Glenn Danzig.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I still admired Glenn. He was part of a band that I absolutely loved.
Would those guys have gotten together and done what they did without Glenn?
No.
Like, it's kind of like they
were riding his coattails.
Right. And just still using the gimmick and the theme that someone else created.
That's
in my opinion.
So here's the reason why I stopped really hanging around with him as much as I did. He started asking me to go out and buy all these bootlegs that he thought Glenn Danzig was releasing without his authority. Now, mind you, Danzig had just gotten to the level of rock star fame. Okay. The first Danzig album had come out with the hit Mother and Twist of Cain. And, he was doing good. Meanwhile, Jerry and Doyle, they weren't doing anything anymore because they were out of the scene. And Jerry, who is a born-again Christian, as well as I think his brother is. I know, right? It's
better and better. What the fuck?
They insisted that Glenn Danzig was worshiping the devil and paying homage to the devil. Because he was
making... you go to your hand, you're like, yeah, I do that.
Yeah. But you know, they just had such a hard time with it and became so bitter that he was making money and they weren't. And basically,
They didn't have the right spells if they weren't making any money.
but the thing
I
is
got
that
the knockoff stuff.
they started having me buy all these bootlegs because they wanted to sue Glenn for like $1 million or more, whatever. The amount of money that Jerry spent on lawyers was astronomical.
Dude, and he wanted you to be his little spy. Like
And that's what I was doing. And eventually I realized, I'm like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I letting them use me like this? And that's exactly what was happening. So I remained friends with him, but I backed off a lot.
Why couldn't they have gotten any of their other friends to fucking do that? Why did they
They
make you
did.
do that? It was like
They
you know,
did.
like a put. Oh, they did. Okay,
They did.
all right.
But
They
it,
knew
you know,
bounds.
being the person
Like
that I was,
condescending, you know.
I know, yeah, I was starstruck with Jerry and Doyle because I mean, let's face it, they were heroes to me.
They abused that for sure. Solidly.
Absolutely. And so when it got to the point where I realized how much I was being used, I backed off.
The dudes are huge too. I mean, there's a lot to respect in like somebody who has that kind of dedication, like the bodybuilding and all that stuff. Like they're fucking beasts, man. And they're I don't know how old they are now, but they're still in shape. It's crazy.
There's no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
Doyle's got muscles coming out of his head. I mean, he's gigantic. The guy, I've seen the guy
You
beat
should have
down.
gone Chippendales. He would have been fine. You didn't have to worry about Glenn.
I don't even think now Chippendale. He beat every one of those Chippendales to death. I have seen Doyle stomp on people's heads.
He's
Like,
kind of a big guy to be.
He's a
doing that.
monster. He's a monster. But here's my point. So
And those are really big boots too. God damn.
Jerry, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make perfect sense to you. Okay, so you got Doyle, who was his brother as a guitar player. And then there was another brother named Kenny Kayaffa, who was also part of the band. He did some managing, and he was also the mascot, if you will. He'd come out on stage dressed as the Crimson Ghost for the beginning of the show. Anyway, Kenny left, Doyle left. And they both left because of their brother Jerry. What does that tell you?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And that's
If
the
your
guy
own brothers,
yeah.
your own brothers are going to quit a band because they can't tolerate being in a band with you.
Especially a band that has that much recognition and that much notoriety.
Right.
Right. Like that must have really been enough for them to say, you know what, fuck this.
Like even when I got into the band, wow. Jerry would hog excuse me. Ooh, sorry. I hope I didn't belch in the mic. Jerry just loves attention. Like he almost didn't know how to separate him. I'm not trying to sound like a pompous rock star, but he didn't know how to separate himself from the fans. Like we'd be playing this big concert, big show. Well, we're getting down, we finish the show, takes off his bass. As soon as he's done, he's out there on the stage like, "Hey, I'm Jerry Only. Love me." And then he'd jump into the audience and just start signing autographs. He would be there for like 2 hours, just signing shit left and right. People would buy something.
Fans love that though. I mean,
don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I mean, don't you think you'd have a little bit like mystique to just kind of separate yourself a little bit from the audience? That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know, when I saw Dickie Barrett do this, same thing, like walk around the crowd after Mike Boston's concert, and he didn't even like he took his suit off. He was wearing just a t-shirt, and he wasn't even facing anybody. I just happened to notice who he was, and he was walking among us, but it wasn't like he was trying to let everybody know who he was or that he was there.
Look,
even when I saw him, I just nodded my head because I respected his fucking privacy. You know, if he wanted his people there, he would have. You know,
I'm not saying that you shouldn't interact with the audience. It's just that every show we did, like as soon as we were done, he would jump into the audience and just start hanging out with everybody. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I've never gone to see the Police and have like Sting jump in the audience and hang out with me. I never went to go see Kiss and have Paul Stanley jump in the audience and hang out with us.
Yeah,
I never went to go see a band.
I get you. I totally understand. Yeah.
We always went out and signed autographs. Don't get me wrong, but he's an attention hog. And the reason I have no problem saying this is because this is a man who said after I was out of the band, who had an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had a podcast. He had Jerry on. You know what Jerry said about me?
The guy who once was your big brother.
Right.
Right.
Jerry said, you know, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but basically that I was a thorn in his side, a black cloud in his life. When I was the one who saved 2 international tours that they could have canceled.
How much money would they have lost?
I can't tell you how much money they lost, but I know how much money I didn't get paid. Is that what I could tell you?
Dude, so that whole thing was just for, you know, doing it to do it. You didn't even get any compensation for any of that.
I got paid, but not what I was supposed to get paid.
But not like those guys, right? Not like a lead singer.
Contract.
I was gonna say, the no contract screwed you probably, I'm sure.
And they insisted on having a contract, but I never got it. So, you know, I would, again, after 2 weeks being in the band, I remember I was in Germany and I called my girlfriend at home. I was talking on the phone. She's like, Myke, they just announced on MTV that you're the new singer. Oh, I'm sorry, that I'm the new singer who's being auditioned for the part of lead singer, which is weird because before we left, Jerry said to me, you're the new singer. So after I heard this news that was being announced on MTV, I went to Jerry and I said, listen, I got to ask you, am I or am I not the new lead singer for the Misfits? And he's like, as far as I'm concerned, you are the man and I'm not looking for anybody else.
As far as you're concerned. Well, that's a little bit of a, a little bit of legalese.
And
there.
I was like, okay.
Legalese.
I was like, okay, if that's the way it is, you're the leader of the band and you're going to make the shot, call the shots, then okay, I believe you. But as time went by little, that brotherly love began to separate from me. And I was finding myself alone. And they didn't involve me in the band meetings. I wasn't allowed to go in the band meetings. I wasn't given any knowledge on certain things. Like,
all the signs were there. Yeah.
I can't tell you how alone I felt on tour with these guys.
That's such a horrible thing.
Yeah.
So when they had like a presser, like did they do pressers where they had everybody sitting at a table? You weren't there?
Whenever we do an interview, we'd have to get dressed up in the whole outfit, makeup and all. And I watched him do interviews, Jerry, that is. He would take the mic and he would not stop talking. Like the interviewer, I think an interviewer asked him like 5 or 6 questions, and that was it. He just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And he'd go from one subject to the next. He just wouldn't stop. He is an attention hog.
Well, his name is Jerry only because it's
only Jerry.
Only Jerry.
Only Jerry only. That's why a lot of the fans they call it the Jerry only band now. You know, when he plays the Misfits on his own. And I can tell you this too, since they have reunited, don't think that they're riding on the same tour bus or staying in the same hotel room. Glenn
is Glenn still doing it? Like the guy I know, like what was it, like 2016 or something like that? Yeah, of course. That's what it's for, what it's about.
Glenn Danzig told me personally, and this is why I got so upset. He told me personally, Myke, I will never do a reunion show with the Misfits. A, because he don't need it, and B, because he doesn't like them. The only reason they're doing it is because,
right.
And I'm not going to even say how much they're making because I know.
But let me ask you this: let's talk about a more positive story about Glenn and what he also said to you when you heard this, and he's like, that guy, that's the guy. That's the guy who should have been replacing me.
Basically, the bass player of Danzig, his name is Steve Zing. And I've known Steve since he was in Sam Hain prior to Danzig. And one night I ran into him at a club in New Jersey. And I'm like, hey, Steve, how you doing? How's things going? And we start talking. He goes, Myke, I want to tell you something. Glenn and I were looking at some videos of you having performed with the band. And he goes, I got to tell you, Glenn said you were the one that should have been the lead singer for the band. And I took that to heart. That was such a great feeling to know that one of my idols was saying that I was good. Right. And to this day, I love Glenn. I love Glenn Danzig. I'm a little upset with the fact that he went and did the reunion when he said he wasn't. But hey, whatever. I'm happy for them. They're doing good. Good for them. Good for them. I really am. I'm happy for them. I'm glad to see that they got what they've gotten. But at the same time, I'll just leave it at that.
There's no pension or 401k for a rock band. So if
No.
they have a potential to do something, they may as well, right? Especially if they have families and stuff like that. So I can understand from that perspective. It is like a lot of people get lost in the idea that it's also a business because it's what you do for a life. It's not something that you do and then you also have something else. You're not independently wealthy aside from it. So, and I can only imagine what the merchandising is and who got screwed where on that stuff too. Because there's merchandising for Misfits is absolutely out of control.
Yeah, well, that's all Jerry.
It's like Kiss merchandise. It's like
I've said that all my life. Once Jerry took over the band, I have said it all my life that the Misfits, the new Misfits, is like the punk rock version of Kiss.
See, I'm pretty good over here sometimes.
Great analogy.
Nick, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. I guess you were just in amazement when I saw you were like. All right, so keep smoking. That'll stop you from coughing.
There you go. And I noticed you have at least one cat in there. The thumbnail that I did, it was actually of you holding a cat. One of the pictures that I grabbed with you, the cowboy hat on, was you holding a gray. It looked like a Russian blue. I think.
Oh, that's Roly Poly, the big fat one.
Yeah.
Oh, what a cat! What a cat! I miss him so much. He was I called him the rock and roll cat. When I had my art studio in New Jersey, if we had to do a photo session or anything, with the band in the studio, the cat was always there. I miss that cat so much.
Oh, that's cool.
He was adored by everybody. Fattest cat I ever had. Lived to be how old was he? 19 years old.
Wow, that's great.
Had never been to a vet once in his whole life.
Oh, that's probably the reason why it lasted so long. It didn't have shots of poison in it.
Yeah, he was a great cat. I miss him. But the cats I have now, the one you saw before, the black one, that's Puma.
Nice.
His sister is Little Miss Cricket, and she's actually, they were born with a disease that was nearly fatal to them.
Oh, that sucks.
Long story short, she doesn't have the cat-like jumping abilities like a normal cat would. So I have to pick her up and put her down to if she wants to go somewhere. But she's a loving, adorable cat. Although they are both very pissed off right now because I've got a new kitten. And the kitten's name is Booger.
Oh.
That's super cute.
I also have 3 birds too. I have, and by the way, all my pets are adopted. I have a blue and gold macaw, which is going to be 29 in September.
You don't say. No one's heard it at all. Just kidding.
So far, yeah, right. You always whenever I'm doing the Michael Deacon program, you'll hear them. But they're quiet now. I think they're taking a nap.
That's cool.
But yeah, the blue and gold macaw who has plucked out all his front feathers and back feathers. But that's how I got him. He was neglected. He didn't have the love that he needed. Or something, yeah. So then I have a parakeet, a male parakeet that has a big tumor on its wing, the size of its head. But he's doing all right. And then I have a cockatiel who I adopted from an older woman who couldn't take care of it anymore. That bird is 21 years old. And then to my right here, maybe on your left, depending on the screen, on my right, I have a ball python.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
How old is your ball python?
Someone stole that snake for me.
Oh, nice.
Good story.
They stole it and gave it to me in 2007.
But if it makes you feel better, it was somebody's familiar and they were going to kill it anyway, so he saved it. There you go.
So yeah, I live in the woods, so I'm always out with the deer. I have chipmunks that eat right out of my hand.
Oh, that's cool.
I had 2 of them, in fact, one from this yard and one from the other yard. I have hummingbirds. I can stand there holding the feeder, and they literally come up right to the feeder while I'm holding it. I've got pictures of me holding my hand out like that with seed in it, and with a little black cap chickadee that lands on my hand and starts picking the seed out. So I am immersed in wildlife out here, and I love it. I love animals more than anything. Although I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, I love animals, and I do the best I can.
And this is why it's so interesting when people have preconceived notions of Satanism and all this other stuff. Like, oh, these people are out of their mind. It's like, this guy is Ace Ventura, for Christ's sake. You know, when he comes home and goes, oh, and all the animals come.
But you know, Daniel, you're not wrong.
Right.
As I said, a lot of the younger people that get into it purely because they think it's cool, without really researching and finding out what Satanism can be for you. Then you're just going by like, yeah, man, hail Satan. It's not like that.
So I one of my viewers here, he says, okay, so Satanists have the bad reputation, much like there's bad drunks, and Myke sounds like a good Satanist. like there's good drunks. Is that a decent synopsis?
yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, I'm not going to brag about myself. I just try to do the right thing in life. I'm older now,
Right.
When I was younger, like anybody, we make mistakes, but you learn from hopefully you learn from those mistakes.
Takes the right kind of person to actually learn from a mistake rather than just being that way.
And if you pick up like a Slayer album, which is filled with symbolism of Satanism, you immediately get the notion that it's just a cool thing, the in thing to do for heavy metal. And the funny thing about Slayer is the lead singer, I can't remember his name, but his father is like a preacher.
Yeah,
that's what I had heard, that they come from very devout families.
He does. I know he does. I don't know about the rest of them.
There's a lot of those paradoxes where there's people who are either in the, have family members that are clergy or they're military intelligence and just happen to be in bands. It's
just happened.
There's a lot of that going on. So there was another thing I wanted to bring up, Myke, and that's, well, also, just so you know, the reason why I brought up the cat thing and that it stuck in my mind is I have 2 black cats right now myself, and we've probably rescued and rehomed 10 or 12 of them because we had a neighbor that was hoarding and then they got kicked out. So then
good for you.
We had them, and then there was babies being had, so we kept them, so, brought them up a little bit and then rehomed them. We get updates from people because they were like in the military, like, oh, this is one of our cats in Hawaii and he's doing fine. So it's pretty cool to see all that. And it's always sad to see them go, but it's like having a lot of cats in your home is not the easiest thing to keep up with at all. So, but yeah, absolutely love our animals for sure. And so yeah, I understand that. I get the feeling. And then, man, when they know, like when you're down, if you got something bothering you, if you feel like when my family goes out and says, hey, we're going this way, and like they didn't invite me, because that happens sometimes. My cat like jumped on me and like wants to snuggle. It's like, oh, so here's the affection that I'm getting because those fuckers just left. So it's pretty cool. Like I've got 2 really nice cats, and they treat my daughter well too. Like they follow her around. She's 7. They follow her around, and like wherever she is outside, like they'll be right there. They're like always watching her. It's so cool.
That's how my girl cat Cricket is. She's the only one I'll let out, and I have a porch. So sometimes I'll take the birds out, and the birds will hang out with me, and I'll have my cat out, and she stays right by me. When I call her, she comes, which is really amazing because every cat I've ever had is just like, I'm like, here, kitty, and they're like, yeah, fuck you. They got a mind of their own. And
they can't roll their eyes, but their emotions say that they're rolling their eyes.
Yeah. Cricket is amazing. She's such a good girl. And as I said, she follows me around. She sleeps with me every night. Even if I'm like taking a nap or something on the couch, she'll come up and lay next to me. So I adore that. I really do. I wish I could have a dog, but I'm a late sleeper. So I'm not up early enough to take a dog out. So I think it would probably, and I grew up with dogs all my life when I still lived at home. But living on my own, it's just easier to have cats.
I think it's funny. I don't know if you experienced this, but I can't, nobody in the house really, but can sit down, because if we do, the moment they do, there's an animal on them. Like you have to just expect it. If you're going to sit down, there's going to be an animal on your lap in like seconds.
What I admire, Myke, is what I admire, Mike, is that you take in the ones that are not going to be adopted, that are not going to readily be adopted.
I've
And
always
that's
tried
something
to
that's
do that.
extremely admirable, because that's very hard
It
to
is.
the patience and all that other stuff that goes into it, and taking care of an animal that is not able to take care of themselves. So,
As a matter of fact, Lisa, I have a cousin. In fact, one of the cousin on my father's side, his name is Anthony. And Nick, you all right over there?
Yeah, I was reading the chat. Yeah.
My cousin Anthony, he's the one who got me into punk rock when I was about 14, 13. And he was in a band himself, so I learned a lot from him. But he now is in he does this thing where he adopts animals that are, going to be put down or are old and nobody wants. And I mean, it's a great thing. It's I can't commend him enough for it. Cats and dogs. Dogs will missing a leg or blind or deaf or whatever, and he takes them in, and that he's got like 14 dogs at home. Yeah, and I can't do it. I'm just one person. I have nobody in my life, like girlfriend or wife or even friends around here. And the only friends I have, which are my neighbors, they're all in like their 70s and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't have any friends out here, so it's just me. And it, like even getting this kitten, as I said, I never had a kitten before. It's always been adult cats. So if I have to leave to go out for somewhere, like if I have to work for like a day, I have no one to take care of my animals. So it's hard. That's one of the reasons I don't go on tour anymore. I'm done with music. It's one of the reasons that I don't go out places, because I have nobody really to take care of my animals. So
and that's hard to find somebody that actually you trust and that's going to do a good job. I actually, not to share quick story, but I was doing a stint on the oncology department at a vet school, and I ran into a woman that she had no children, but she had this huge pension, and so she would go to shelters and adopt out the oldest dogs, because those are the ones that would never. And then she would pay for them and bring them in for therapy or whatever. And that's how I met her. And I started dog sitting for her whenever she had to go out. But she was saying how difficult it was to find somebody, especially with the needs of these animals, because she was adopting the old ones that were diseased and had problems.
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very noble thing, and I really commend people that can do that. I wish I could, but as I said, it's just me,
It's
and I don't.
hard.
Yeah, I don't have the
hard.
room for it. Certainly don't have the money for it, and when you're doing everything on your own, it's not easy. So I was, like I said before, I was at my capacity with animals before I got this kitten. But when my neighbor came up to me, he's like, "Yeah, I got this kitten." I'm like, "Well, look, I'm not going to make any promises to you, but let me see the cat and I'll see what I can do." I see the cat, it jumps in my arms. I'm like, "Oh man,
Done.
I got another cat." And that's how that
That's
happened.
cute.
Somebody who was the best part of the Misfits after Glenn shouldn't be the one who's right now saying that they have issues with money. It sucks. It sucks that this is how the world works, right?
Yep. I will
For
not
sure.
deny that. But as I said before, I'm not trying to, boast about myself, but I saved 2 international tours for them on 2 separate continents that could have easily been canceled. And note, at the time in 1998, they were the biggest concerts the band had ever played in their entire career, and I was part of it.
Again, like, I don't know what your following was for the Empire Hideous, but that had to be a little bit of daunting too, just to have that massive amount of energy in the same room, and they're all looking at you.
Yeah.
You know,
In 5 months, I sang to about 100,000 people.
Oh, wow.
that's awesome. That is
So-
crazy.
And I, not only were the biggest shows that I ever played, but they were the biggest shows they had ever played in their career up to that point in 1998.
Yeah, and that interesting and kind of unique way of the deep, like, kind of like echoing voice that Glenn has, that was like perfect, like matching for how you sang in the Empire. You know, what I mean, the Empire Hideous. It went well with the songs. Like it went very well with how you already had trained your voice to do this, and people don't get that. Like you have to do all different types of train. No. Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But you're not on the right track. What happened here?
Tell me.
So, in a nutshell, when I did Empire Hideous, whenever we did music, I would tend to write very long songs, anywhere from 5, sometimes 8, in one case, like 12 minutes long. Those are some of the anthem-like songs that I would write. And they were sung. I would sing those songs. I went through some vocal training in 1991 and 1994. And when I finally got into the Misfits, I had a professional guy named Don Lawrence, who taught everybody from Sebastian Bach, Joey Ramone, I even want to say Bruce Springsteen, how to sing vocally without hurting your throat. So when I got into the Misfits, if you know anything about their concerts, which are 1 hour long, they would do 30 songs in 1 hour. And mind you, they're like 2 minutes long. But nevertheless, when you do a 2-minute song, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like it's nonstop. It was like a Ramones concert, which is the same way.
Right.
So I wasn't used to that. I really wasn't. So I had to, mind you, I had broken up my band, Empire Hideous, in February of 98. I hadn't sang for, February, March, April, May. I hadn't sang for 3 months. Then I get the gig with the Misfits. Now I did the audition, and it's not like I had forgotten to sing, but I wasn't used to the velocity and the speed that I would be singing at. So, here I come from one band where I'm actually singing songs to a band where I'm pushing myself so hard. And you should. When I came off stage, I was drenched in sweat. I must have lost like 10 pounds in sweat when I was on stage. And mind you, by the time I came off that first tour, I was a rock. I was in perfect physical condition. But at the same time, they would tell me stories about how when Glenn would sing, he'd get so hot sometimes he'd literally pass out or throw up on stage, and they would just pick him up and he'd get back into it. What I'm saying is this: I had problems because I wasn't used to it. So after I believe it was the 7th gig we had, maybe the 8th gig we had played, I began to lose my voice because I wasn't used to it. So I began to crack, when I was singing. Yeah. So Jerry started trying to teach me how to do vocal warm-ups, which they have to be done specifically to the person based on the range that person can sing. So when I finally met Don Lawrence, the vocal trainer, he told me, he's like, Jerry put you up to this? He's been letting you use the tape to do your vocal warm-ups that I made for him? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, no. He's like, that's bad. He said, you're lucky you didn't blow your voice out. So he started a whole thing completely separate just for me. And then what he would do is he's like, okay, he would record it on a cassette. Then he'd give me the tape, and then I would this is when we had Walkmans back then. Yeah. And then I would put it in my Walkman, and then I would put the headphones on and rehearse to it and warm up to it. And it was like a 20-25 minute warm up, doing scales. Lee, 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 so on and so forth. So yeah, Jerry was trying to help, but he was only making things worse for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be tailored to the particular person and what their ranges are, I guess.
That's right.
That's scary.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about this one last thing, if you don't mind, if you have time.
Yeah, yeah. While you're doing that, I'm having an allergy attack. I gotta take my nasal spray.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Over here.
So if anybody else has anything else to say on any of the topics we discussed first before I ask this, it was simply because I've been on the Michael Deacon program a couple times, and every time I was thinking Myke Hideous was going to be there, he wasn't able to make it. So, and I was like, you guys, your dynamic is just amazing. It's hilarious. It's fun. It's energetic. You guys, dude, Michael knows how to like rip on people without making their feelings hurt. It's kind of funny. It's just a really good dynamic. So how did you guys like meet the first time? And you're almost a co-host. I mean, you're basically there like a lot, right? So
I'm the co-host when he's not doing an interview.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you how we met. In 2008, Michael contacted me to interview me for his show. He was doing a different show at the time with a different host, or co-host, I should say. And we did the interview. And from that point on, every once in a while, like I'd get a call from Michael, leave a message on my machine. Hey, Mike, it's Michael Deacon. Just want to say Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, Mike, it's Michael Deacon. I just want to say Happy Easter to you. So he, I was like, wow, what a nice guy.
Right.
And I did like maybe 8 or 10 other interviews with him afterward, maybe even more. I don't remember, but let's count. And then in when the hell was it? I believe it was 2017 when he said to me, he goes, I got an idea. Mind you, he was still with his partner at the time. He said, would you be interested in doing a show with me? I was like, absolutely. I said, I've always wanted to do a podcast, but I don't know how to do it. And I'm not technically inclined. So he basically set it up. We tried it out a couple times, but then there was a long pause. And then, of course, the China virus hit, and that was the end of everything. So in 2020, we did a couple of shows, and then again, he waited a little bit, and that's when people started to ask, hey, when's Myke coming back on? Myke Hideous. And Michael contacted me. He's like, all right, now it's working. Let's go full forward with it. And we started doing more shows together as him, the host, and me, the co-host. And it basically, it started out where we had to learn each other, and how to feed off each other and basically perform. First, let me say Michael has one of the best vocal voice for speaking that I've ever heard. He's got golden vocal cords, and he's going to get to a higher level at some point. But took a little while, but eventually we started to really mesh together well. And now we're at the point where I can make him laugh. And now I know we're doing a good show, because for the longest time I never heard him laugh. He would never laugh. But he told me a secret. He's like, yeah, he goes, I laugh. I just hit the mute button. So yeah, I love doing a show with Michael.
Yeah, I like I always hear like, oy vey.
Yeah, oy vey. Amazing.
Oh man, your constant references back to Jelly Roll made me laugh so much. Oh my god.
Oh, that poor guy.
You guys know who the country music singer Jelly Roll is?
Yes.
He's like CMT like superstar, but he's like like enormous, and he's got this really hot like stripper wife.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Her name's Bunny, I think, or something like that, right?
That's right, Bunny.
Yeah. Why do I know this?
Yeah, why do you know this? It's sad. I know it too. That's sad. Anyway, yeah, he basically, Lisa, he's a country western singer, big guy, but this is a guy who's now incorporated country music with rap, and I can't stand rap. So anything that is associated with rap music, and I'm not a big fan of country, so that's 2 strikes right there.
Yeah.
But the guy's well overweight, and let me just go out and put it out here. I have nothing against people who are fat, but I do have an issue when people say it's okay to be fat, because it's not. It's very bad for your health, and you can die from it.
Yes.
So when I talk about people that are overweight and obese, in fact, Michael too, we're simply pointing out the fact that you're making things worse for yourself. You know, I heard he's losing weight, by the way.
I'm sure he got stapled. I don't think he did it because of his, his will or his determination or his,
On the contrary, there were people. In fact, he ended up closing down, I think it was his Instagram or whatever the hell it was, because too many people were telling him you need to lose weight. So he took great offense to that for whatever reason. I don't know why. People are just trying to make you a better person by losing all that fat. And now, from what I understand, he's losing weight. So good for him. I'm happy for him, and I hope he stays with it.
Not surgically, then?
I don't know. Maybe you might be right on that, but I do know he's doing it because he now realizes how bad it is for him.
Yeah, a lot of times when very, very overweight. I mean, it's hard to then try to apply some kind of self-discipline.
Of course, it's not easy to lose weight.
All right, no, it's not, and it's pretty sick how badly those operations can screw you up too. Like they're really bad. Like they're going more for the look than they are for the health, because it's not good for you.
Be that as it may, I'm sick and tired of hearing the people that are like, "Oh, stop fat shaming," and love yourself. Your body's,
that's
you
ridiculous.
Do what you want with your body. So when I see these big, gigantic, obese, overweight people saying that it's okay and that love yourself and you are beautiful, I'm sorry, but that's just not right. Okay.
And I'm glad we got into this type of topic too, because another thing that Michael Deacon points out to you, not just that you're too nice to be a Satanist, but also that you have a lot of conservative views that that he says are kind of like, paradoxical because of, a different type of outlook as you may have had prior to that China virus, and seeing how the world has kind of revealed itself to you, and everybody else. They kind of let the curtain drop on that one.
Yeah, well, I just try to do the right thing, and Michael, I don't know if you've ever known this or about me or not, but I was a politically correct liberal Democrat for almost 30 years, and that all changed when King Hussein Obama came into our system and began to screw up everything that was going pretty much okay. He's the one who brought up the whole race thing, stating that, white people are racist by DNA. I take great offense to that.
Me too.
Okay. And so I immediately stopped being a Democrat. Mind you, I'm not a Republican either. I'm an independent. Sure. Nevertheless, I have learned. Now, I don't know if any of you are Democrats. I don't know if any of you are Republicans. But I will say this. I will never, ever go back to the Democratic Party, because what I have learned, I read a lot about politics these days, and I have read some things that have blown my mind. And the reason I voted for Trump, and I have no qualm saying that I voted for him, the reason I and 70 million people voted for him is because he is not a scumbag, corrupt politician. He's a man, even though he's a billionaire, he's a man who understands people like you and me. Whether you like him or not, he got the job done. And it was because he doesn't get paid off and corrupted like these other politicians do and will be and have been. He's a man that wants to make this country good for the people that are in it. Not this fucking woke bullshit that they're shoving down our throat, and the media that doesn't tell the truth and gives us their narrative. I'm done with that. I'm done with the media. I'm done with the politicians. No more. I am frustrated. I love this country. I love this country. And I'm not, see, I'm a man who can say I'm for capital punishment and I'm for abortion at the same time. But then, on the right, you have people who are for.
I'm for capital punishment for abortion.
It's just weird. You got on the left, you got people who are into killing babies. On the right, you got people who are into killing prisoners. I'm for both, but the Democrats were trying to make it so that you can have an abortion even after the child is born.
Infanticide.
That's murder.
That's straight up Babylonian bullshit again.
So I'm sorry, but I'm for abortion, but it needs to be done in the first few months, not at the third trimester, not after the child is born. And as far as capital punishment, you kill a person, you die. That's my look on it. As long as all the evidence is undeniable.
Provided the system is not corrupt.
Provided
which is
the
hard
system
to find.
is not corrupt, right?
Right.
And look what's happened to this country in just 3.5 fucking years.
Yeah, and you know what? I voted twice for the same person you said, Trump, but I also, have to weigh in the whole warp speed, still talking about the vaccine, now saying that it's curing cancer, which is a fucking bullshit lie. He's murdered millions of people with his lies. And he also was crowned king shit by Israel.
It's like Windex or Robitussin. It's like Windex or Robitussin, the vaccine. It just cures it all.
Oh yeah, of course, right?
Drink bleach.
Right. There you go.
Fabuloso instead.
And he just recently said that if you are, and this is a loaded fucking label to put on somebody, if you are guilty of anti-Semitism, which is whatever they decided it's going to be at that moment.
Wait, who said this?
That it was he have to bring back the death penalty.
Who said
back
this?
the death penalty? Trump said this in one of his rallies recently. So he's basically threatening murder if you speak ill. If you say, I don't want you to genocide babies in Palestine, well, when he gets in, you might be killed for that. That's my problem with him. I mean, I supported him in the past. I voted for him twice, but what I've seen from him lately is that he is either, I mean, his mother was Scottish, but she was also Jewish. I mean, there might be some kind of loyalty there that we're not recognizing. His daughter is married to, who, so there's all that going on. And he's all wrapped up in the Saudi stuff too, because of, what was it, 666 Fifth Avenue or something like that, whatever that building was. So there's all kinds of weirdness going on.
I don't know about the comment you made about killing people. I sometimes think he says things that people might take out of context, or
I'm trying to find it.
But you know what? Anything's better than the babbling idiot that we have in the White House right now.
Right. As long as it's not the one that they're calling an anti-Semite, just for the simple fact that they want to get rid of anybody who's
Listen, you want to talk about anti-Semites? How does a president give money, billions of dollars, to a country that says death to America? How does a president continue to give respect to a country that has done the things that they've done, and give them money, and then say, oh, we're so sorry that your president died in a helicopter crash. Oh, so sorry. You know what? I hope the whole fucking army dies in a helicopter. These people are effed up. Okay.
So you're talking about Iranians and the Muslims, right?
You're goddamn right. I am. I have a real problem with these people.
So who do you think actually took down the towers? Do you think it was Muslims, or do you know that it was the CIA, Mossad, and
I don't
Israelis?
We just had this conversation on the Michael Deacon program Friday, and they asked me, since I've been doing the show with Michael, have I changed my viewpoints on it? And the fact of the matter is, nothing has been completely presented to me to change my mind thoroughly. I will say this. Since I've been doing the Deacon program, I have definitely come up with some new questions about what happened. The other thing is, Trump was going to reopen the investigation on 9/11 had he been reelected, but obviously that fell apart.
What took him 4 years when he had the opportunity, though?
Hey man, come on, you got to give the guy credit. He did so much. He did more than the last 4 or 5 presidents did before him.
I agree with that, but here's the fucked up thing about this. It makes me wonder if that's for us, like that's to keep a stupid guy busy thinking that a certain way, because it only took a few strokes of EOs to change all that. when the next asshole came in, it's like, yeah, it didn't really matter what was going on for 4 years because it was temporary. It gave him a good light, but then the next guy comes in and like through like a dictator, he signs a couple of executive orders and undoes everything, puts us back in the Paris Climate Agreement and all this other shit.
Oh yeah, well that just goes to show you they hate. Listen, they would have voted for a ham sandwich if it was against Trump, because they wanted him out so bad. They hate this man so much. Why? I'll tell you why.
Makes me
And
wonder
we
if
all
some of
know
that's a little bit of
we
act,
all know
though.
why, because he's not part of the corrupt political establishment. He's a man who came in and he was an upstarter. Did I say it right? Upstarter,
Maybe.
right? Upstart.
I remember being
usurper.
I remember being asked a million times through emails to support his campaign, fund it, just so that he could go around saying he was self funded. Yeah, that was good times.
I have a
about Trump?
question.
Yes,
I have a question about 9/11, and I had no idea, so forgive me. I had no idea that Michael Aquino had given an actual interview stating all of the, I guess now, what the conspiracy community is talking about with 9/11, like meaning like it never happened and it was all TV generated, and the flight manifest never contained any people from the Middle East, and they were all flown to, I forget the air base that he said. What have you ever heard that interview before? I had not heard it before, and it was news to me because it was the first time I had heard it about a week ago or so ago. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Listen, when I lived in Kearney, I used to be able to see the Twin Towers from not only from my window, but from the street.
Mm-hmm.
So when it happened, my best friend, Mark Steiner, was literally walking to work the day it happened. He saw the plane. He saw it hit.
Mm-hmm.
So living where I lived, I was able to see the towers on fire.
This is the first time I've ever heard anybody outside of the people watching TV say that they actually saw a plane at all, and that it wasn't just potentially added in because they had explosions in the building.
They were doing.
You saw it? You saw it?
Well, one of my friends, I went to school with, he had no reason to make this up.
So I didn't mean to cut you off either, Mike.
No,
I'm just surprised because this is the first I've ever heard of like actual real people saying this.
He was on like the top of a building smoking a cigarette and said he legit saw it. I was like, what the fuck?
Did you ever see the interview? The interview. They were doing a documentary on the New York Fire Department, and they were on a call for apparently some gas leak at a sewer. They're in the middle of the street, and you hear the fucking plane. You hear it, and they pan up, and you see the plane. Bang! You see it. There's nothing computer generated about anything. This is the same bullshit they're saying about with the Israelis that it's fake footage. No, the insane lunatics that put cameras on them to go in and murder people, from children to adults. They were boasting about it. So no, it's got
people
nothing
don't understand
to do
what false flag means. Like they think that means that nothing happened. No, it means like it was deliberately planned and that there's other acting going on. I think that's what they usually mean. It's like, no, people died, but actually it means also that they was all orchestrated.
They place the blame on somebody else. It's like the whole Gulf of Tonkin situation all over again. I think the reason that I bring up Michael Aquino, because he was the king of psychological warfare, and for him to give that actual interview, it's almost like implanting that idea into the zeitgeist. And that was my only reason bringing it up. I have no skin in the game in terms of, I do think that our government was somehow, wanting another Pearl Harbor, but how they went about it, I don't know.
Get us into just killing off all of Israel's enemies.
But at the same time,
think about if it's going to take killing innocent people to do that, what does that tell you about those who would be in charge?
Exactly.
Like when I was given that thought, I'm like, why would America, the leaders of America, want to kill innocent people? Well,
the leaders of Israel who call themselves leaders of America.
I was just about to say, when I was given that alternate thought, I was like, no, I can't. That's why would they do that? But I've learned more and more about how ruthless things can be, especially when it comes to higher up politics. The other thing I heard was that Israel were involved in doing it, so that they could set up a America against the Islamic Jihad people.
Right.
But
And that's not to say that those jihad people don't go around doing fucked up shit. It's just that when they try to spark us into something, was that real or was it Memorex? You know what I mean?
Memorex.
It was definitely real. It was definitely real. Whether or not it was.
What I mean by that was,
insight.
did they actually do it, or did somebody else do it just because they may have a list of atrocities a mile long, but they needed something to happen, and I don't think they leave anything to chance. So even if they antagonize an enemy to do something, I think they still make sure that they have their people on the ground to make sure that it gets carried out the way that they want it to.
Well, have you heard the recent thing that's come out about the JFK assassination?
Mm-mm.
I mean, the CIA and the mob were in on it.
I think I see Jackie getting all wacky. Honestly, little Jesuit Jackie. I see her pull his head in, and it's like he's boom, because like it looks like an exit wound coming off the side of his head. No one else says that. Everybody says it's a driver and it got rubbed out. I say Jackie just went boop boop, and then
I don't know about that.
hasta la chachas.
I disagree with that.
Mike, you'll have to check out the interview that Nick did with.
I was just thinking about that with Ryder Lee, and then
with Ryder Lee and
I
alternate.
forget the guy's name already. Jay something. I know he's done movies or horror movies.
And who are these people?
They have my friend Ryder Lee. He has a podcast called Raised by Giants, and he had Jay Weidner or something, or Widener. I think he's done movies. He's done like special effects and stuff for horror movies. And they came on the show and they were showing that they think, in their opinion, that that was like kind of like I guess like special effects, and he faked getting shot.
Who? JFK?
Oh yeah, with the blast pack and all that stuff. I heard that too.
The theory was that he was dying already, and so he wanted out of the situation. That was the theory that they proposed. So
that's crazy. I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's tough to say what's what. But can I show you guys this real quick? I just want to put this up here so that nobody just thinks I'm just talking about my six here. Let's go ahead and open this up here, and I think I have to.
This evil anti-Semitic attack.
Can you hear it?
Is an assault on all of us. It's an assault on humanity. It will require all of us working together to extract the hateful poison of anti-Semitism from our world. This was an anti-Semitic attack at its worst. The scourge of anti-Semitism cannot be ignored, cannot be tolerated, and it cannot be allowed to continue. We can't allow it. It must be confronted and condemned everywhere it rears its very ugly head. We must stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters to defeat anti-Semitism and vanquish the forces of hate. That's what it is. Through the centuries, the Jews have endured terrible persecution, and you know that. We've all.
I mean, even the writers of history told us that, so it must be true.
All read it. We've studied it. They've gone through a lot, and those seeking their destruction, we will seek their destruction. And we have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one or another group, we have to bring back the death penalty. They have to pay the ultimate price. They have to pay the ultimate price. They can't do this.
So, speaking ill or having questions or challenging the 6 million number, you should die for that.
And who do you think he's talking about?
Who is he talking about? No,
I'm asking you. Who do you think he's talking about?
I think he's talking about, it's a warning to every one of us not to question Israel.
So you think that if you, with our free speech in this country, you think that if you spoke out in ill terms about Israel, that you'd get killed?
Well, anti-Semitism already, they passed bills right now that they're making a crime. They're taking people off of the flight log. The flight list. You can't fly if you got this moniker slapped on you, And
Let me
it's
ask you a
what?
question.
For questioning
Let me ask you a
what?
question.
For saying, hey, I don't think you should kill a bunch of kids.
What happens
You know?
when you talk ill about black people?
You'd be labeled a racist.
And what happens in some cases? You can get arrested. What happens if you talk about trans people or anybody who is involved in the whole woke movement and
People
being
call you a
gay?
bigot or whatever.
But there's also points where you can get shut down.
Mhm.
Your podcast.
Oh yeah,
can
as
get
far as
turned
that, you
off.
could get canceled the shit out of. Yeah.
You can get arrested. There are a lot of things. Look,
So it's not exactly free speech. It sounds like you're saying.
I don't think it's going to be to the point where we're going to become Nazi Germany.
I don't think Nazi Germany was Nazi Germany, but that's for a whole other story.
Well, what I'm trying to say here is that when tyrants take over a country and they lay down their communist, socialist, or Marxist laws,
Like
that's when you need to.
laws.
That's when you need to worry.
Right.
Like we are in right now. I firmly believe that the politicians that are involved right now in the administration are trying to move a socialist, Marxist agenda on the country. They're telling you what cars you can drive, what kind of oven you can have, that you cannot use ceiling fans anymore. They want to banish cows because they fart too much. I mean, just think about it.
That's part of the
They
communism
even wanted,
thing, right?
They
like,
even want, out of all the cigarettes that are available, they wanted to ban menthol, which is what black people smoke constantly. All right, they love menthol cigarettes. So now you're going to eliminate menthol cigarettes for the health purposes of black people. What I'm trying to say is that we are in a country right now where we are being told what we can or cannot do. I don't know if any of you drive an electric car.
I'm not a communist.
Exactly. Because in the event, first and foremost, you can't rely on them. Secondly, if in the event you are, I don't know, you didn't get your China virus shot, and you're traveling from New York to New Jersey, and you're going to cross the borderline, and at the toll, your car shuts off because they don't want you going into New Jersey.
Even better, they drive you to a freaking police station and they lock you in the fucking car.
All I'm saying is that we are worse off now than we are with Donald Trump. And
I just wish it was not that dichotomy that it had to be either or. It's like this fucker or this fucker.
If you ask me,
out from the first time already.
If you ask me, I think he was talking about the people who committed the crimes that they did against the Israeli people. But let me be clear. I don't think it's just for the Israeli people.
So you think that was a priming for a more active American presence in what's going on over there, like to have another war?
A logical statement.
Probably,
if you're going to hurt, look, the Jewish college students, I think it was Harvard, were being blocked by these little woke fuckers that were standing in front of them. These are college students. What involvement do they have in the Israeli Gaza war?
What's really funny about that is that, like,
attending Harvard, nonetheless.
Yeah, Harvard and Columbia are like the Franklin Institute, the Frankfurt Institute in America. Like, it's like these are the most liberal, communist, Marxist places you can be. So obviously that shit was all staged because they wanted to make a point about it, and they had the stupid dupes there to do it. You know,
they're also coming from the richest families attending,
of course.
So like they never went without. I mean, to know what suffering is, come on.
Right. Yeah, empathy.
That's just me. Sorry.
Empathy for something they saw on
TV.
TV.
I would not forget the Malthusian agenda that's happening globally.
Do you know which president killed the most Americans?
Obama. And probably with drones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but you don't know. You don't hear about that on the news, though, right? You didn't know that.
I think Clinton would probably be number
Mexico.
2. Kosovo.
And don't forget Mexico with the Fast and the Furious and deploying all those guns. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, but if Trump had done it, he'd be he'd be marked as a racist, communist, whatever the fuck. But when our Lord and Savior King Hussein did it, it was okay. Why? because there was nothing. Like if you said one thing that was against what he wanted to do, you were deemed a racist. This is the same man who, remember, what was his name? Chevron Martian, the kid who got shot. You know what I'm talking about? Trevor Martin, Chevron Martian.
Trayvon.
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin.
Chevron Martian. He was the one that King Obama said, "Oh, this could have been my son. This could have been my son." Well, if your son dresses like a thug and, you know, is committing crimes, well, then first of all, your son's fucked up and deserves what he gets. All right. So all I'm trying to say,
no, you're good. You're good. I'm going to 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. All I'm saying is that what Trump said in that clip he played, I'm speculating here. I'm just putting out what I believe. I think he's referring to people that are going to cause harm to other people, whether it's Jewish or someone else. But the fact of the matter is, you, Lisa, you, Nick, and myself, we are Caucasians. And there's more shit that goes down against our our ethnic background than anything else. I'm not saying that I'm a racist, bigoted person. I'm not. What I am saying is that we constantly get put down. We constantly get told that, you know, we're wrong and racist, but that's so illogical. White people have done so much for Black communities and Hispanic communities and Asian and so on and so forth, Latino. But we're told that we're racist by DNA, by this piece of shit president.
It's kind of fucked up.
I will say this. I'll insert
Almost
this
like
to
religion.
to your point, you know, in sometimes doing volunteer work, I hardly see, and I'm Hispanic, I hardly see Black and Hispanics doing volunteer work in any field, whether it is humanities, whether it is cleaning up a park or anything like that. I rarely see that those two ethnicities are racist now. And I will be honest, and you know, I'm into wildlife, I'm into conservation. It's a hard sell. The majority of people in conservation, especially wildlife conservation, are majority white. And so when you think about, you know, that the majority is now, or the minority is becoming the majority, that concerns me as a wildlife conservationist. So I will admit that. I will admit that.
And so you just made a perfect point. How something like being part of the ecology and cleaning up the town or the area that you live in. But what am I trying to say here? I think what you're saying is great. Something like that should be taught in school, but instead they're being taught, well, you know, Jane has 2 mommies, and it's okay to dress like a cat if you feel like you identify with a cat.
They have litter boxes at some schools.
Like this is absolute pure insanity and indoctrination.
I would agree with that.
This is how you bring a country down. And I don't think it's necessarily just the people that are doing it. I sincerely believe this sort of thing is being promoted through China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And all our enemies are focused on dividing this country. So what do? They support the people who are saying, they stand up with, you know, the red hair, the green hair, the blue hair, purple hair. All those people stand up and say, a woman, you know, got a set of boobs. She goes up, I'm a man. You are? That's funny, because whether you lop your tits off, get a penis, and start taking hormones to grow hair on your face, when you die 100 years from now and they open up your coffin, your DNA is still going to indicate that you were a woman. So this is mental insanity. I've got nothing against gay people. Nothing. I've known gay people all my life, especially when I got into music. Okay? And I used to go in the bathroom with cross-dressers and drag queens and gay people. I never had a problem. But to tell me that they need their own bathroom now.
You weren't a 7-year-old girl going to school either, though.
Precisely.
You know what I mean?
That's my point. So the whole they're maybe not so much fun. Well, in some cases funding it, but they're supporting the division of our country. And again, this all goes back to King Obama.
And I 100% agree with you with what you're witnessing and what you're sensing happening to this country. And I think it's been happening for ever since the First and Second World War. It's been a slow erosion of this type of
100 years they've been trying to break into the country.
And I think where I'm coming from is I don't see Trump as being outside of that. I see him as being the scripted guy who comes in to try to fix everything, but then makes it worse afterward because everybody welcomes him in. I just think that I think some of the things that we look at as far as like that speech there, the whole Operation Warp Speed thing, him still continuing to say good things about the shots. I think these are all kind of like hints to what is happening here and who he might actually be. Either we all say he's rich enough. We already say he's rich enough as it is, but the manipulation or maybe the fear factor, I don't know if they have something over him, if he's just willfully doing this because of his ego, but seems like he's, at least supporting everything that Pharma does. And we know who's at the head of Pharma, same people that hang out in Israel. And I don't know. It's hard to separate the things that you see because we want the hope that there's at least somebody out there that's going to be different. Especially
he's definitely different. And I will admit that he's a narcissistical person. Is that right? Narcissistical? Did I say it right?
Yeah, good enough.
He's definitely a narcissist. I'll put it that way. But I'm okay with that because I'm not voting for him for his attitude. I'm voting for him because he gets the fucking job done. Period. And then whether you like him or hate him, as I said before, the man did more in 4 years than the last 5 presidents we had before him.
But then we also had the lockdown and all of that stuff that happened prior to that was erased and we went backward. It's like losing 5 pounds to gain 50.
Wait, repeat what you said?
Well, when the lockdowns came and all that prosperity that was happening and prior to that, it all went the negative direction.
Right.
Businesses were closed down.
But Trump wasn't president at that point.
During the lockdowns?
Yeah, 2020, he was gone.
He was president for one. I remember.
No, if I remember correctly, he was gone. The pandemic started in March of at the end of 1990.
Yeah, so November
2019.
The following November would be when he would be. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I get what you're saying. I believe,
and they still stayed until that following January, so it's kind of
right. It went from 2020 to 2020, almost 2022, I believe. Let me say this: I understand what you're saying. However, I sincerely believe that there was a lot of pressure on what Trump had to do. People, let's face it, we were all scared. I was scared. I'm a post-cancer patient. And the first thing I did was talk to my friend who's a doctor. And I asked him straight out, Doc, what do you think I should do? He's like, Mike, based on your history with your health, I don't think it would be a bad thing for you to get the shot. Whoa. He got it too. So we both got the shot. We both got the booster. And shortly after, we both said, fuck that. He was like, Mike, I made a mistake just like you did. He goes, I thought we were doing the right thing, but I think it was all about politics. And I don't dislike him for it. As I said, I was scared. I was really scared. So I got that shot. I regret it.
That fear factor that motivates people. And that's, again,
yeah,
it's like more of that mind war shit. You hear it from every direction. And then that idea of mind war is actually that you act as if like it already happened so that people themselves will, manifest whatever outcome that they want you to,
I'm assuming all of you haven't gotten a shot.
I have not.
I have not. No.
Good for you, man. Good for you. That's great. I applaud you.
But I mean, and I think a lot.
You got one, dude.
To me, I've always been skeptical, just being in the scientific community, seeing all the different operations that have been done by the government, approved by the government on the minority and other types of ethnicities. And it's not just Hispanics, it's not just Blacks. It's also been, I think, Japanese as well, and the whites also as well have gotten their own fair share of it as well. And it just doesn't stop. And to me, I remember when it first came out that, that I was thinking it's been more than 30 years that we've been throwing enormous amount of money at cancer, and they haven't even been able to cure one. But now we have a vaccine in less than 6 months. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree.
That was
Such a
my
cash cow. They'll
rationale.
never. Yeah, they'll
And
never.
so
Cure it.
If I may, Lisa, I think, and I've been saying this for a while now, and I just said it before. I think Trump was under a lot of pressure because we were faced with this terrible disease, that virus that affected the whole world. Everybody was scared. Now, can you guys honestly sit there and tell me that you weren't scared?
I was hoping.
I was at the beginning. You know what's crazy?
Not about the virus, because I don't believe in viruses.
I supposedly got it real fast.
You got it?
I supposedly. So like when I had it, and like it was kind of like I literally got it the weekend before they closed everything down, and I really wasn't too much into politics or the news, so like it even kind of caught me off guard. Like, wait, what's this? And like when it didn't really fuck me up too much, I was like, what the fuck are people talking about? You know, my wife had got it as well too. She was fucking working from home 3 days later. Like, it was like the flu. That's what she said. You know, and so like none of us were. So I guess because of that, I was just like, man, I don't think this is as crazy as they're making it out to be. I was like, I had a low grade fever for 2 days. I was like, it's a big, I don't know. So maybe that I.
What about the rest of you? You guys get it?
No, I can't catch unicorns, first of all, so it wouldn't be a virus. I can't get unicorn dandruff either, so it wouldn't be a spike protein.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. What are we talking about?
Well, the virus idea of what makes you sick is invalid in my opinion, and it's more likely that there was a poisoning event that occurred, or previous shots finally came to manifest and made people sick, because the flu season was prior to that, and who got the worst of it? People in convalescent homes. Those people are mandated to take those shots. So if they had a flu shot and then they started getting sick and dying, there's a correlation there. And then they say, oh, it's the imaginary magical thing.
Okay, but hang on a second.
Hold on, one more second. Also, when you have millimeter wave 5G radiation, it can actually spontaneously cause in the air double bounded nitrogen and oxygen. You know what that is?
No.
Cyanide. You know what they call high altitude sickness, the inability to breathe? Yeah, that's from cyanide. So if that was a correlation, if they lit those things up, nobody would know. Nobody could see it. And if certain areas were
saying that the
sites,
virus wasn't real?
No, there's no such thing as a virus. Never been any sample that's been isolated ever.
I can't understand how you could say that. I've had viruses all my life.
No, you haven't. You've had illness?
Well, yeah.
You may have had a correlation.
What do you think an illness comes from?
Sick.
What
Not
do you
from
think
an imaginary, invisible monster.
What's imaginary and what's invisible about a small, tiny
I would
cell
highly
that you can't
recommend,
say?
because if we do this, it's not going to be. I'm not going to say it as well as Dr. Stefan Lanka, who calls himself a recovering virologist. You speak to him, Dr. Tom Cowan, any of these people, Béchamp, who back in the 1800s basically proved it with his microscope that was stronger than an electron microscope that we have now, could actually see living tissue with it. Rife didn't ever make the correlation, but his looking glass was pretty much very close to that. These things that they're calling viruses are what do they call it? A artifact of the process of preparing a slide for an electron microscope. It's the breaking down and the dissolution and the dying of cells. So you have this cell debris. They point at it and say, "Look, that's the virus." And then they sell it to you, because what they're really trying to get you to do is to go and take things like these shots, be dependent on them, who's the only people who can save you from these problems that they created. And then you're dependent on them. You're going to them for the solutions. And that's how they keep people sick, keep people suppressed, keep people this. If they just got off that idea that, hey, and then maybe they look in their water, maybe they look in the air, maybe they look in their food and see where poisonings actually come from. And then there would be a little bit less of a correlation, or maybe the thing that's injected directly into their arm when they feel like it's time for your shots, and how that might gestate and then manifest into an illness. The lack of proper nutrition that would bring your ability to defend yourself from such things down to a degree where when everybody else gets sick, so do you, because you're purging toxins, and they call that a disease when it's actually the cure because you're actually getting rid of the shit. So everything is backward when it comes to allopathy. It's a eugenics program, and they do employ certain things that will kill people off on purpose because that's what they're do. Same thing with chemo. They know chemo and radiation don't do anything besides kill people. 97% failure rate. It's because they want to kill you. And I'm so happy that you didn't die from that. My aunt did. They did 2.5 years of poisoning and radiating her.
I've had radiation 3 times, and I've had chemotherapy twice, and I'm still here.
I know.
I mean, granted, I still have problems, but
I'm glad that you didn't have that same issue that my aunt had. My aunt, who was a mother of 3.
Yeah, but you're saying that it kills you. How does it?
It does over time. She had 2.5 years of it.
How old was she?
In her 20s, with her third child that was just born.
So she had cancer?
She had leukemia, they called it. You know, another no-seam cancer.
Leukemia. I mean, that's pretty serious, man.
If that's a thing that couldn't have been done with nutrition,
but I
because
thought
we always believe that what they say is true. I don't buy anything that they say in the
but you just said that you don't believe in these viruses and stuff.
The virus isn't leukemia, bud.
But, no, I understand that, but I'm just saying, isn't it the same sort of thing of being sick from
what they tell us is the cause of anything? I don't buy.
Okay.
I want to know. I want to know myself.
I can't argue with that on that.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to decree it from their high holy place of priestcraft sorcery. This is why you're sick. You know, it's like, fuck off. Let me see if there's any validity to it first before I start taking your drugs.
Do you take anything if you're sick? Do you ever get sick?
I take nutritional supplements. I don't think
but if you get a cold or the flu,
very rarely.
Okay, but you do get a cold or a flu, right?
Like if I have stuffed nose every once in a while, maybe. I don't know. I don't really.
Well, when was the last time you were sick?
I was living in New York probably 20 years ago.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, when living in New York, I was sick all the time. That shit was always sick.
Oh, I could imagine.
Sore throat, not being able to breathe. Oh my god, everything is bad.
All the pollution, but I mean, I've been lucky since I've been out here. I'm not around a lot of people all the time, so I don't get as sick. But after I got those 2 goddamn shots, I did get COVID twice.
Oh,
yeah, and that's again like what poison are they putting in you that mimics the very same thing that they say you're trying to avoid? You know,
I couldn't tell you, but as I said before, I'm completely against that shot at this point.
I hope the best outcome for you too, that nothing rears its ugly head in the future, since you've already had. It sucks to have gone through that.
You're right.
How many times did you say you had cancer? 8?
8.
It's awful.
2 times I had 2 different types of cancer at the same time in 2 different intervals.
And this is before you even like launched your music career, right? Like that was prior to for the first time.
1, 2. So I had it twice before I started the band. And then after I started the band, about 1.5 years later is when I got sick again.
Right.
That was the 3rd time.
Well, anyway, I don't want to point out the fact that, you know, the chemo didn't do the job either, but
no.
Right.
I also, well, I'm not going to get into it. The point of the matter is, yeah. So
I love you, man. I'm not trying to.
No, not at all. It's a healthy debate, and that's
right.
fine. I'm okay with it. I'm not taking it the wrong way. Listen, I'm not some woke fucking idiot. Oh, I'm a woman. I'm just. It's a healthy debate, and that's good. I appreciate that, and I also respect what you just said to me. All I'm saying is that what the hell was I saying? I was going to say something. I forgot. I'm just trying to point out that I got the virus after I got the shot, and again lost complete faith in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not part of it anymore. But yeah, the whole cancer thing, that's a completely different, separate story.
Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry. And you know, again, I don't think that anybody should have ever recommended you get something like that if you already had a history of compromised, you know, health. Because right. I think that stuff pushes you over the edge and fills you with a bunch of toxins that you didn't necessarily need.
Well, the interesting thing about the COVID shot is that it's not like a flu shot. What they're giving you,
gene therapy.
From what I understand, doesn't it alter your DNA or something?
Yeah, they call it messenger RNA, but I think it's more like modified. I think that's the proper term for that M in the mRNA, because it's changing things as it gets
Yeah,
on.
that's right, because actually changes something in your molecular structure or something like that. I can't describe it like I heard it scientifically, but when I did hear that, I'm like, holy crap! My brother was the one who told me that it's not like a flu virus. So then they're not giving you a portion of the virus so that your body builds up an immunity to it.
Right.
And again,
that's the other thing too,
Daniel,
with the models that they do, the computer models that they say, like, well, this is a fragment of a virus, but this is what our computer model that we decided to program to tell us this thing told us is what the whole virus strand looks like. It's like, okay, so everything that you just said to me is CGI and babbling bullshit from your computer. You still don't even like have like the answer. So how do you create something to fight it when you don't even know what the fuck it is yet, and you don't have a sample
and how
that's
scary
isolated?
is it to know that if you even discuss the fact that you believe that either the election was stolen or that the China virus was leaked out of a lab, they'll shut you down. They'll censor you because they don't want you to know. Right. So here's the good thing about this, Daniel, is that there are shows like this and the Michael Deacon program and my show, Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous.
Hope you do more of those.
And a 1,000 others that...
And they call rejects.
Right, that too. But what I'm saying is people are going away from the mainstream media because they no longer trust it. They trust more shows like this where people can not only speak their mind, but exchange ideas. And that's what I think is happening now. People are losing all faith in the mainstream media because of their lies.
I get more out of you and Michael discussing whatever, pop culture topics are at the moment and the craziness of the world and Jelly Roll than I do out of mainstream media.
That's funny.
All right, so we got 2 hours and 10 on the clock. I think my daughter just came in. We had a great talk. I would love to have you back.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. I had a great time.
You're very well appreciated here, I believe. You guys, I've talked a lot. You guys go around the room if you'd like and say your last couple 2 3 things, and then we can call it a day.
2 or 3.
Well, thanks, Daniel, for having me on. I had a really good time, and it was awesome to be able to meet you, Myke. I had a really good talk. I thought that was. I'm really glad we got to talk a little bit about like your take on Satanism. I thought that was very important.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because I do think
I hope I enlightened some people with the answers I gave, because we're not all metal maniacs.
No. That's why I thought it was good. Yes.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, and I guess just I'll plug myself too before we wrap it up. If anybody wants to check out our stuff, the Occult Rejects at YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and all major podcasts. Thanks, Dan.
Very good.
Daniel, thank you for inviting me on, and Myke, it was wonderful meeting you. Yes, absolutely. I'm very fascinated to learn about all different belief systems. It doesn't faze me what you believe. I'm always been extremely curious of all walks and all belief systems. And I enjoyed hearing the backstory of your time with Misfits, because it's things that you don't normally hear. It's almost like watching VH1, behind the curtain or whatever, but like in real life.
Behind the curtain with Myke Hideous.
Yeah, exactly. And then getting to know you, it was a blast. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you have, just a great personality. You got, if anybody thinks the Satanist is antisocial, this guy has got a heart. He's got animals. He's got it's all your preconceived notions about everything is just that. It's preconceived notion. It's not reality. And with that, I want to say we should learn to accept everybody. Go ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You said you studied the occult as well. How deep did you go?
Or Nick.
Both of you. I mean, Lisa, you don't
let Nick start, because he's
no, not compared to them. I'm a newbie to all this.
Curious, and I'm sorry. I know we're running out of time, but still, I mean, we did talk a lot about me. So what? I know Nick was in the OTL, but what do you guys know? Like, what did you study? How do you know this?
I got like big into like Kabbalah and Gematria.
That's hard, man.
Yeah,
I read the Kabbalah. I was like, I can't understand this.
Hermetic Kabbalah, put it.
It's complicated.
I was like I guess because of being in the OTO, you have to understand I was just predisposed to Crowley and thelemic ideas. So I do have, I guess, maybe that outlook sometimes at looking at occultism, because of Crowley.
And this
But I can get into plenty of other things.
But in a nutshell, this was, you were involved in a group that was the OTO, like an actual.
Oh yeah. It was an actual real lodge and everything. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I eventually left, and eventually, once I started having like my own experiences, I just realized like I didn't need to go to a place like that, and kind of left. And I just, what's really weird? It'd probably be interesting. I'm sure we'll talk again. They actually started pushing that far left shit too, so that pushed me right out the fucking door.
Yeah,
blew my mind, dude. They're pushing the straight socialism.
I'm sorry not to get into a deep conversation, but LaVey was actually anti-left. He hated.
That is interesting, right?
He hated hippies.
that was the one last thing I wanted to ask everybody.
That's funny.
So you have Zena LaVey, Shrek, and you have Taylor Swift. Anyone want to touch that with a stick or
they
what?
look identical.
Okay.
They look identical.
I didn't realize that. Okay, it's been a long time since I've seen Zena, right?
When she was younger, for sure. Like
when she was on the talk shows, she looks just like Taylor Swift does now.
I didn't realize that.
Very much
it's
so.
bugged out. Yeah, I think it is.
And Daniel, what about you? Like, what's your background in it? Like, how do you know about it?
As far as just reading and gleaning, like going into the topics that I have, finding something that I wasn't familiar with, and then just because that's what I do, I consume everything I can about that thing until I make sure I know it, right? And I know it upside down, frontwards, and backwards. But when I was making preparations to write this,
oh wow,
I went through the whole history of like from Sumer. I went through, like I said, the Michael W. Ford book about the Babylonian magic and how to conduct the rituals and all that stuff, and just kind of went through the Freemasonic order. The Jesuits actually have a lot of mysticism in them too, and just the ancient cults and the priestcraft. So it's priestcraft beyond Babylon because they're still here. They just wear suits and white coats now instead of black robes, except for the judges who never got rid of the black robes.
That's quite interesting. So you studied occult basically before you wrote the book?
Yeah, and then like the show kind of went from there. Like I started reading into I think the Jesuits. The first thing my very first topics were Bill Cooper and the Jesuits. However way that came about, like whatever books I was reading at the time.
I see.
There was a guy that was trying to pin everything that happens bad in the world on the Jesuits, and he wrote a bunch of books. But then I realized that he was covering for a lot of other people. So,
and Lisa, like, what's your background?
Yeah. So I'm an academic. Grew up kind of going to school. Predominantly took a lot of biology classes. Initially, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I went to go work for one. I realized that you're dealing more with people than you are with the actual animals. And so that kind of turned me away. So I got into research, hardcore research, did a lot of cell culture. My background's immunology, stress physiology, a lot of anatomy, a lot of physiology now, looking into wildlife diseases and so forth. So it's kind of, this whatever. But I was always into esoteric occult topics. And so when I stumbled upon Nick's show, it kind of just, it was my thing. And so then I had the opportunity to work with Nick. And then now looking at different occultists, like looking at the ones in the history, looking at different grimoires. I mean, just learning so very much, especially with some of these old grimoires, like from the Middle East or from up in the Netherlands and stuff like that. I think it's extremely fascinating and how much they knew back then compared to what we don't know now. So I think a lot of it was lost. A lot of it has been suppressed by design, I think, on some level, or maybe just wanted to, make money off of a situation and be, have middlemen trying to be the go-between.
Interesting.
So that's kind of been my path, so to speak.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with me, all of you. Thank you. I just wanted to find out a little bit about you guys real quick. In any event, I want to say thank you. If anybody's interested in my book, King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit, written by yours truly, no ghostwriter, you can go to MykeHideous.com and along with all, I like, this is one of my t-shirt designs. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, so yeah, if you go to my t-shirt, to my website, you can go to the section where I have all my merchandise. And in addition to some of the CDs that are still left from Empire Hideous and Spy Society, you can get my book, you can get my t-shirts, you can get all kinds of cool prints. It's actually called Horrible Artwork Designs. And I do everything like, dark, creepy monster stuff. And yeah, so there's been a bunch of new t-shirt designs, prints on towels, throw blankets, throw pillows, mugs, everything. Just go to the website. Thank you, folks. I really enjoyed doing the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. I greatly appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. It was good, and I hope people out there, because the last video I did with Dustin Emos, I think people get a little like bent out of shape when there's like things get a little bit more debate like in nature. I don't always like to take it that way either, but I think it's fun and I think it's good for, it's just another way of communicating, right? It's not necessarily, debate isn't an argument. There's a big difference. And I think a lot of people who get too offended by that need to kind of like grow up a little bit, because
That's
we love
the
Mike.
world today.
Right. And we love Mike, and not everybody is as sensitive and is hurt by every little word that they hear. So if that's you,
That's
maybe
right.
that's the problem, is that you're sensitive, not so much us.
Exactly. In fact, like with Michael Deacon, him and I have our differences on things, but
yeah,
we can have those differences and still be friends. That's the American way. That's what I love about the country. We can always give our opinion, but you have to know how to take it as an adult. And on that, I'll end our conversation.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for your time.
How do I get out of this thing? What do I do now?
I think you just hit the
leave studio. Got it. Okay.
Go.
Thanks,
Later.
everyone. Be good. Take care.
Bye.
Right. And there we have it, guys. Thank you for your time as well.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for bringing your audience in with it too. It was great. Good time.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, it was nice to see some people in the chat. That's what's up.
And I heard a lot of people say they wanted part 2, so we'll be
I'd be down for that. Yeah.
working on that too. All right. Thanks, guys. I gotta go see my daughter.
All right, we'll see you later.
Take care. And then that's it for us too. Out of here.